I'd like you to imagine your dream life. See the version of you who has what you want to have, feels how you want to feel, and is who you want to be. I'm Brittany Hoops, your hypnotherapist and manifestation coach, and this is the show where I'll teach you to master the full power of your mind, to guide you on your journey towards destination manifestation.
Take a step back for the ones who can't do that.
Hello there, travelers. Welcome to another episode of Destination Manifestation. Now, if you're watching the YouTube version of the show, you might notice things look a little different around here. I got some work done on my office/studio yesterday. And so it's airing out and it smells very heavy of paint. So I moved the office into the living room. Therefore, you're seeing a beautiful, different background than you're used to here. But let's jump into what we're going to discuss today. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into the complexity of emotion. You know, I've been loving some complexity lately on the show. You know, when it comes to emotion, I kind of find myself in a really interesting spot. Right? By trade, I am a certified hypnotherapist. Some call this a clinical hypnotherapist, meaning that I am different than just a hypnotist that's going to come to your high school lock-in or a hypnotist maybe that you see in Vegas somewhere. I don't do hypnosis for entertainment. Okay? I do hypnosis to help people feel their best. That's the entire purpose. So, you know, oftentimes, especially in my early days as a hypnotherapist, I would see clients mostly for anxiety, depression, other emotional mental health issues. And then after a while, I kind of started incorporating my own passion and my own study around manifestation into hypnotherapy because I realized that hypnotherapy isn't just a tool that you can use to go from a negative emotional place into more of a neutral and functioning place. But it's also an amazing tool to help somebody who's already at neutral, who's already functioning, healthy in emotional sense, and to help them go to an even more positive place, to help them reach their goals, manifest their dreams. I mean, the correlations between the two are just insane. So, of course, I still see clients for mental health issues. A lot of people who pursue their goals still encounter mental health issues, phobias, like we talked about in our last episode, as well as all sorts of things, right? But when I see these clients, it's usually through the perspective or through the lens of helping them reach a net positive goal in their life. Okay, we're not interested in just getting rid of the depression. We want to get rid of the depression so that you can go and live a life that you want. So I say all this because I come from a background of understanding emotion from a mental health perspective, right? Then on the other side of the coin, we kind of have this whole world of manifestation. And manifestation, if taken too literally, can seem at times like it's all about being in Delulu La La Land. It's very woo-woo. Why are all the words that people who use to describe manifestation in a negative light make it sound like it's something out of Dr. Seuss? Delulu La La woo-woo. We're not a baby, okay? But, you know, a lot of people can see manifestation if they misunderstand it, that it's kind of like, you got to be positive all the time. No negative emotions, only positive. And of course, we know that that's the misunderstood version of it, right? The toxic positivity version of it. When I think some well-meaning people will take the concept, they'll misunderstand it, and then they'll go too far towards that misunderstanding. So I mention all of this because I oftentimes find myself viewing emotion through two very different lenses, but at the very same time. And I think it's kind of a superpower because I feel like it helps you understand the complexity of emotion. And so for today, I want to help you bridge that gap between these kind of two perspectives. Because emotions, and I mean all emotions, okay, even the bad ones, they play a vital role in the way that we manifest. They are, as Abraham Hicks likes to say, the sort of blinking light on the dashboard of our manifestation car, okay? The car that's going to take you to destination manifestation. The emotions, especially the negative ones, are kind of like that dashboard blinking indicator. They serve to alert you when something is off or something is wrong, okay? When your perspective on something is no longer a match to how source or God or the universe sees that very same thing. I'll give you an example. Right now, I live in Austin, Texas. And today, you might be hearing it on the audio. Today is what they would consider a historic wildfire warning day. I've never lived through one of those before, and there hasn't been one of those in many years. So if you hear the wind howling or I think I have the windows open in my office trying to air it out. And so it's making the door in my office make a lot of sound. So hopefully you don't hear that. But if you hear that, that's what's happening behind me right now, okay? And after everything all the poor people in Los Angeles has been through, where I used to live in Los Angeles. And so, they've been going through all these wildfires earlier this year. This warning here where I live kind of has me on edge, right? Or I should say, my thoughts about this warning have me on edge this morning. And so all last night, all this morning, I've been feeling super anxious. Okay. So I want you to imagine this emotion of anxiety here is kind of like a red blinking light on the dashboard of my manifestation car, right? And when it blinks, it says, "Hey, Brittany, hello, yoo-hoo, are you there? Guess what? Source knows that you're going to be just fine. And you don't seem to think that right now, or you don't seem to get that just yet, or you aren't remembering that right this moment. And so that feeling that you feel, that anxiety is alerting you that something's off, something's different. Okay. Now, I love to give this example of the game Marco Polo. Have you ever played that? It might have been a game that you used to play, in the swimming pool as a kid. I'm not talking about the actual game of like water polo, but the game that was kind of like swimming pool hide and seek, right? You have this person who's the seeker, and they would close their eyes, and then all the other little kids would kind of bounce and swim around the pool, trying not to get caught by the seeker. And so to help the seeker would shout out, "Marco." And then the other kids would have to reply, "Polo." And then the seeker would use their sense of hearing to be able to kind of tell which direction the other kids might be based on where they heard the sound coming from, right? The louder the kid, theoretically, the closer the seeker was to catching them. So when it comes to manifestation, I like to think of the role of our emotions like this game of Marco Polo. When you're feeling anxious, like I was this morning before I did my anxiety hypnosis session, I say, "Marco," and the source or universe, then in my case, whispered, "Polo." And it's so far away. It's so distanced from where I was that I knew I was nowhere close to the emotion that my source was feeling about that very same subject, the weather today. But I did something about it. Okay. I did the anxiety hypnosis audio. And the more I then affirmed my safety, the more I reminded myself and diverted my attention from the fear of the wildfire and into the present moment of, I'm safe. All is well. I know I can get through anything. Things are just material, right? As long as I am safe, anything else can be replaced. Or anything else, maybe not anyone else, but as long as me and my family are safe, anything can be replaced. That allowed me to ground myself back into that present moment. I found my way back to the way that Source was seeing this situation. I moved from fear to faith. And y'all know, if you've been listening to the show, that this is my favorite mantra lately. And so now when I say, "Marco," the next response that I get from the universe is "Polo." And it's so much louder and it's so much clearer until eventually me as the seeker has then caught the universe. And now my emotion matches its perspective on that same subject. All is well. But I want to highlight something about positive and negative emotions here today. Yes, the positive is going to be the perspective of the universe. And yes, for our manifestations, finding a way to reframe and move towards positive emotion is one, simply just going to feel better, right? It's going to give us a better life experience. And two, it's going to help bring your manifestations to life. We know that when you're in positive, high vibe emotions, you are trucking along towards your goal. But this begs to question, well, if it's so helpful then, if it's so great, then why do negative emotions even exist? Like, what's their purpose? Well, they serve a very important purpose. I think a lot of manifestors, when they don't understand the importance of negative emotions, then they start to demonize them, right? All of us humans have a tendency to demonize those things that we don't take the time to understand. So they take those negative emotions personally and they think, oh, I'm feeling sad. Oh my gosh, I'm feeling sad about my manifestation. This must mean I'm a bad manifestor. This must mean it's not coming to me. I'm doing something wrong, right? And so then they try to outrun the negative emotions or they try to numb the negative emotions somehow. And I am just going to simply tell you this, okay? When you do that, when you fear that negative emotion and you don't stick around in it long enough to process it and to learn from it, it is just going to hold on to you even tighter. That's the catch-22 of negative emotions. I see this the most with my clients who suffer from anxiety, okay? Even this morning when I was feeling anxious about the weather pattern today, another way I could have handled it, which I do not recommend, okay? This would be the unsuccessful way, I might add, would be to have pushed it down or away, to push that anxiety away, to say, stop being anxious, Brittany. Geez, grow up. You know better. To beat myself up for feeling that feeling. And maybe I'm so distraught by the anxiety, it's got me so irked that I decide to overeat or I decide to overdrink. Or to say, gosh, Brittany, you're a manifestation hypnotherapist. You can't feel anxious. What does that say about you? Blah, 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 right? And make it mean something personal about me. That would have been one way to do it, but it would have made it way worse, okay? Rather than, thank goodness, what I did decide to do, which is to realize, hey, this emotion is here because it's trying to tell me something. What is it telling me? What can I learn from it? Now, this is what we do in something called parts therapy, which is a hypnotherapeutic technique. We talk to the part of you that is anxious. We say, hey, buddy, what's going on? Like, why are you putting this alert on my dashboard here? Talk to me. Tell me what's up. As I say that, you know what that sounds a lot like? Well, it reminds me a lot of, and it makes complete sense. This sounds a lot like the difference between good parenting versus bad parenting, right? Bad parenting would have that parent yell at the child and say, buck up, stop crying, be happy, stop crying. And you know what that doesn't do? You would think parents would learn. You know what that doesn't do? It doesn't stop the child from feeling the emotion. You can't make somebody else stop feeling emotion. I don't know. Has anyone ever yelled at you hard enough to make you happy? It hasn't worked on me yet. No one could yell at me enough to make me feel, genuinely happy. Instead, what this does is it just simply teaches the child that they're going to need to shut down around you, that they can't trust you, they can't share their emotions with you, and they're going to have to somehow mask and deal with these emotions in another not so healthy way. So now they fear both the emotion and they fear you, the parent who's yelling. Now, good parenting would sound a whole lot more similar to how we were just talking to the anxiety, right? That little child cries, the child's sad, and you say, hey, buddy, what's going on? What's going on? Talk to me. What's up? And you're helping that child to process the emotion, and you're teaching this how to do this so that they can do this themselves one day, so that they don't have to listen to podcasts to learn these skills, or they don't have to go and do this, right? Unfortunately, many of us were not treated like this as children, and therefore we have to learn it now, as adults. And thank goodness we can. This is reparenting ourselves, right? But isn't this interesting? Because until we reach the age of 7 years old, we are pure subconscious minds. We haven't developed our critical faculty of our mind yet, our conscious, logical, linear thinking. So no wonder we then get in the habit of then as we're adults, we get in that pattern of yelling at ourselves once we're older. What we're doing is we're just replacing the yelling that was happening to us as children. And we're just used to, oh, when I feel an emotion, there needs to be some sort of yelling involved. And my mom isn't here, my dad isn't here, so I need to yell and berate myself about it. And we're just replacing the yelling and all that emotional censoring that we may have experienced as children. And we're doing this simply because it's just a subconscious pattern that we learned when we were a pure subconscious mind. Now, we know when we're driving a real car, right, that the alert on a dashboard of a real car doesn't just go off to say, hey, it doesn't just say, hey, want to say hi, hope the drive is going well. It doesn't usually do that. No, the alert goes off because you have a flat tire or it's alerting you that you need an oil change. It wants to tell you something so that you can safely continue to drive that car and reach your destination manifestation. Our negative emotions serve the very same purpose, but we can't learn from them if we don't listen. I mean, think about if you ignore that blinking light on your dashboard for too long, you're going to end up stranded on the side of the highway, and you're going to wish you would have listened to it sooner. And it's the listening part that actually allows us to solve that unmet need in a way that allows the negative emotion to lessen once we've learned the lesson. I like that. The negative emotion will lessen once you've learned the lesson, meaning once you've taken the time to listen to the reason why that emotion is there. And once you give yourself what you need so that it can resolve itself in a healthy way. Now, you might be a little surprised to hear from someone like me, a manifestation hypnotherapist. You might be a little surprised to hear me say this, but life is not about being happy all the time. It simply isn't. These negative emotions are here for such important reasons. They're here to tell us once we've gotten off path, and they're also here to teach and show us the lessons that can help us get back on our path and back on our journeys. They're also here to provide something that we call contrast. Okay? We need the contrast, meaning we need to experience dark to appreciate the light. We need sadness to love happiness. I mean, imagine just for a second that you're a little fishy in the ocean, okay? You're a fish in the ocean. The ocean is all you know. It's your whole world. You've only ever existed in the ocean. Everything around you, your whole life, if you're lucky and you don't get fished or caught, right? It's just pure ocean. So the ocean, to you, although it's life-giving to you, although it's amazing, it's just simply neutral. It's easy to take the ocean for granted when you've never been without it. Same for us humans and our oxygen, our air, right? So if you were a little fish and you swam in the ocean of pure positive emotion and good feeling, you wouldn't know what that even feels like. I mean, a never-ending ocean of happiness would only feel neutral to you. There's no comparison. There's no contrast. And I think you and I would think, wow, I'd love to live in an ocean of pure happiness. Well, it wouldn't be all happy because it would simply be neutral. It kind of reminds me of that show. If you've ever watched that show a couple years ago, The Good Place, such a good show, by the way, if you haven't. I'm not going to spoil anything for you if you haven't watched it, but they kind of come to a similar conclusion after spending so much time in heaven. Okay? Heaven stops feeling like heaven when you don't know hell. Now, us humans, when we really appreciate and know how good our oxygen, our air is? Well, it's when we're gasping for it after we've choked. Okay, and that's a very stark analogy here for a manifestation podcast, but it proves a point, right? I will tell you, I remember the shower I took after not being able to shower for a full week during the 2021 Texas winter storm. We were out of heat. We were out of electricity. We were out of running water for a full week in our grody little apartment before the roads were finally de-iced enough so that we could eventually venture off to a part of town that had a hotel with running water. And then after that week of being in the apartment, we then lived in the hotel for another week before our apartment was ready and livable for us to go back to. This is Texas for you, okay? You might now understand why I was a little anxious about the weather stuff this morning, okay? So anyways, that shower After a full week of not showering, a full week of shoveling snow using literal pots and pans, and then waiting for the snow patiently to melt so that we could use that snowy, dirty, gross water to power our toilets. I kid you not. That shower at the Hyatt Hotel after a week of exhaustion and smelliness was the best damn shower I've ever taken in my life. Now, was the water any hotter than a shower I took a month prior? Was the water pressure any better than the shower I usually have at home? No. It's just that I'd experienced what it was like to not have those things for a while, so it made the contrast of having them so much sweeter. So if we go back to our fish analogy, right, it's only by getting out of the water, by experiencing the negativity and the unhappiness, that we're able to feel happy. The unhappy allows you to know even what happy is. That's what makes happiness exist, rather than just being in a state of neutrality. Neutrality, I would say, is also, for us humans, a symptom that we're taking something for granted. So this is one of the reasons why, if you experience mostly positivity in your life, I might poke at you a little bit. And I might say, hey, that tells me that your goals aren't big enough. Yeah, you aren't aiming high enough with those manifestations of yours. You're staying in that safe, non-contrast, neutral zone. Because if you have big goals and you have big intentions and you take some big action to go after them, it's simply inevitable that you're going to encounter some contrast. And that's good. That's how you learn. That's how it makes the payoff of that big goal feel good and worth it in the end. If you pick this tiny little goal, you're going to have a tiny little reaction once you get it. Oh, that's nice. And that's no fun. We don't want every single goal to be, sure, that's nice. Okay. No, we want to be like, yes, I did this. That's the fullness of life. Now, on the flip side, if your life experience is mostly characterized by negative emotions, that usually tells me that you have something that I like to call compounded suffering. Yeah, so what's that? Meaning you might feel sad, you might feel fearful, anxious, any number of negative emotions. And then on top of that, you suffer about your own suffering. Meaning you take it one step further. You say, oh, I shouldn't be this sad. It's so sad that I've been depressed for 2 years. I've wasted so much time. You're sad about your sadness. You're becoming anxious because you might feel anxiety in the future. And I will tell you, I see this a lot with my phobia clients. Usually it's not even encountering the phobia itself that will trigger the anxiety. Say I have a client who fears going to the dentist, okay? They might actually start feeling anxious several weeks before their appointment. That's not being anxious at the dentist. That's being anxious that you might feel anxiety 2 weeks from now when you're at the dentist. The dentist didn't cause that second layer of anxiety. You did. Now, where might you be compounding your own suffering? Taking suffering and then calling it yours, taking ownership over it, making it a part of you, taking that suffering personally, and then hurting your own feelings over it. Being upset about being upset. It's kind of like adding a layer of icing to a cake. It just compounds it. We make our own experience of it worse that way. Isn't it crazy? Isn't it funny to be human, like that we do these things? Like they're so irrational, and yet we do them, right? We can compound our own suffering. We can take something like suffering that already exists, and we can somehow find a way to make it worse. I don't know, I just find it funny. I will say, though, that there is a benefit to this ability to compound, right? If we have this ability to compound emotions, why not compound your own happiness? Let's use it to our advantage. Why not in those moments where you find yourself feeling truly happy and at peace, that you allow yourself to be happy that you're happy? I mean, that's one of the best feelings. I would say we often call this gratitude. I personally feel this the most when it's a weekend morning and the sunshine is streaming through the large windows in my bedroom and I'm all snuggled up next to my hubby in bed and we're giggling about something silly, right? And I'm just in his arms and I just feel so dang happy, right? And I'm just so dang happy that I'm happy. And I'm spending my time in this way. And I love that I'm spending my time in this way and that this is my life. And, you can just double your happiness here, right? Find ways to compound and really milk those good feeling emotions. Be happy that you're feeling them because that's going to create a really high vibration within you. Actively enjoy the good days and the good moments when you got them because that's the benefit of this contrast. So we can feel sad about feeling sad. That compounds the negative. We can feel happy about feeling happy. That compounds the positive. All of this is contrast, right? Is it possible to be happy about suffering? Can you be happy about your own suffering or your own negative emotions? I'd argue, yeah. Because when you do, like I mentioned before, when you stop running away from the negative emotions and you actually take a moment to listen to the negative emotion and you listen to it with compassion when you learn from it, I don't mean wallowing in it. And, that's the compounding piece. I mean, actually just sitting down and giving some distance between you and the emotion and just listening to it. They lessen when you learn the lesson. And once you learn that lesson, you become a whole lot happier. Now, that's being happy about the negativity that you just experience. That's the happiness you experience on the other side. That's when you can look back on it and say, yeah, that was a hard time, but I learned so much from it. That's how I feel about when I was depressed. I look back on it and say, actually, it gave me some of the best gifts of my life. It gave me this job of hypnotherapy, right? So being happy that you did something about it is a natural effect of that. Being happy that you listened to your own internal guidance system enough to learn that lesson from it. Well, if you can be happy about your own suffering, can it go the other way? Can you be sad that you feel happy? Yeah. That's the complexity of a human emotion here too, right? You might experience this the first moment that you notice that you're having fun or that you feel quote unquote normal after a loved one passes away. All of a sudden, there's this twinge of guilt or sadness in an otherwise very happy moment, simply because a part of you doesn't want to be happy if they aren't here. Doesn't think that it can be possible for you. And yet here you are. You just proved yourself that it was. I mean, I'll tell you, I definitely had those moments since the twin miscarriages, like that sometimes it just doesn't feel right to be happy after losing so much. Heck, I even had those moments during Big Brother. At the very end of the show, at the very end of the game, at the end of the 3 months, I just spent 3 months cut off from the outside world without my husband, without contact with my family or friends. All of a sudden, I, as a human, had this routine. Like I had this routine in this life, just in this little house. I had this new life and it didn't include them. And yet there were some moments where I was laughing and I was having happy. Those were few and far between, but there were some. And I didn't like the fact that I could, as a human being, be happy without them. They mean so much to me. They define so much of my happiness that I didn't like proving to myself that actually I could be just fine. I don't know. It sounds crazy, but that didn't settle well with me. Aren't we so strange as humans? Emotions are so complex, and yet there are humanity. I think it's no coincidence that people who cause the most harm here on earth tend to be the ones that outrun their emotions the most. They tend to be the most emotionally stunted people, right? Because emotions connect us to our humanity. Empathy, which is literally the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, to understand the emotions of another person, is what connects us to other people. But if you find yourself stuck in a place where you want to limit your happiness because you think you deserve it, or you should be stuck in a place of never-ending happiness or sadness, I should say, maybe it's because someone you love is not there to experience it with you here in the physical. Well, that's when you're simply sentencing yourself to a lifetime of unhappiness. You've put yourself in that jail. And guess what? You're the only one with the key. And what kind of life is that? That's a life devoid of contrast too. Okay? Just like everything can't be happy, well, everything's not meant to be sad either. Human 3D physical existence is designed to include both. It's designed to have contrast. Now, here's the final thing I want to leave you with here today, okay? No matter what emotion you may be feeling, the good, the bad, the ugly, all the contrast, I want you to remember your own role in all of this, your own power in all of this. You are simply the one who's observing this feeling, okay? You're not the feeling. You are the one observing it. Experiencing it, yes, maybe, but even that is simply a form of observation. A feeling is something that is created by a thought in your mind, okay? You think a thought, whether you thought that thought consciously or subconsciously, and then that creates a vibrational sensation in your body that you interpret and read as a feeling. So when you remember that you're the one that's observing all of this, really what you're observing, or in the case of compounding your suffering, what you're actually judging, is just a thought that created a feeling. And both are not you, not the true you, not the extension of source you, not you at your core. And that's the very best news of all, because when you realize that, you remember that you can change it. It's just kind of like an artist, right? An artist that has a whole array of paints of different colors in their toolkit. You can decide to use a different color. I mean, imagine if we only had one color that ever existed. Okay, blue. It's blue, everyone. All blue, right? Art would be so boring. It would all look pretty much the same. But no, there's contrast, there's color, there's a variety of emotions. And guess what? You are the artist. So if you don't like the emotion or the sensation or the color that you're observing in your life, you can find a different thought that creates a different emotional experience. Pick a different color. It's like the example I gave you at the beginning of the episode, okay? There's one thought, there's going to be a wildfire that destroys my home today. And that creates a certain feeling, right? Anxiety. But with the help of an anxiety lessening hypnotherapy audio, I was able to remember that I'm the one observing the thought. Okay? And that thought isn't even true. It wasn't even true in the present moment. It helps us remember how much we lie to ourselves, you know? And so then you can ask yourself, so what thought is true right now? Well, it was the thought, I am safe. And when I think that thought, I feel relief, ease, right? A completely different emotional experience. And that's really what hypnotherapy is designed to do at its core, right? Hypnotherapy is training wheels to help you select new thoughts. And as your hypnotherapist, I offer the thoughts and then you think them. And it's easier for me to be able to offer you the thoughts because I'm not in the throes of that emotion that you're in. I'm separate. I'm very much separate from you. And you're separate from it too when you remember to observe it. But when you don't remember to observe it, it doesn't feel like you're separate from it. So, I mean, this whole process is entirely why I credit overcoming my deep, too long year depression all those years ago using hypnotherapy. Okay, I think it was in my first episode, Welcome to Destination Manifestation. I go into that story. I think it's that episode. If not, it's one of the first episodes of the podcast. I go all into that story. But I was super depressed. And at that time, being depressed, I was stuck in these cycles. Okay, I was stuck in the cycle of one, not realizing that I had any choice in my thoughts. Two, assuming I was the thought, that there was zero distance between us, me and the thought, right? I was caught in the throes and the waves of that emotion and thought. I could not observe it. And three, I was getting stuck in habits and cycles of really negative thinking. Negative thinking that just literally had me convinced that life wasn't worth living. I mean, that's as negative as it gets, right? But it's then that I started hypnotherapy. And every day I listened to audios that helped me distance myself from those thoughts. It helped me see a version of myself that had choice in my thoughts. It reminded me of my own power again, power that was always there, but that I'd simply forgotten. And then it helped me think new thoughts instead. The hypnotherapist that I listened to offered me the thoughts that a happy person who didn't have depression would think. And then I practiced those thoughts until they became my own. They became my own natural thoughts. And that's why we practice them at the subconscious level. Because when you practice them subconsciously, the subconscious creates new patterns so that it becomes automatic. Because the subconscious is in charge of all our automatic processes. It beats our own heart, it breathes our own lungs, it thinks our own automatic thoughts. Because when you first start out, right, it can be hard consciously to think those new thoughts, okay? Abraham Hicks talks about this all the time. You can't go from 0 to 60 when you're conscious. You can't jump from a thought of depression when you're in the throes of it and then all of a sudden think a thought that's super happy. It just, your brain won't let you. Your conscious mind won't. So if you're feeling depression, you won't have the thoughts available to you to be happy. You need to think a thought that's within reach, okay? A thought that's just one step above depression. It might be a jealous thought, for instance. Now, jealousy, we don't typically think of that feeling good, but jealousy does feel better than depression. It's a jump that you could make yourself. But what the beauty of hypnotherapy is that we relax our conscious minds, that our conscious mind just gets to hang out and chill out. And then we talk to the subconscious mind. And so we're kind of reaching a place of neutrality first. We're letting go of the things that are causing us issues, and we're reaching a place of neutrality. And then from that neutral place, we can then practice thoughts that feel positive. So we're able to make a bigger jump than if we were just using our conscious minds alone. So hypnotherapy is designed to help you move up that emotional scale faster than you might have been able to do consciously otherwise. Also, you aren't the one typically. It really depends on the hypnotherapy audio or the session, but you aren't typically the one that has to come up with the thoughts when you do hypnotherapy. The hypnotherapist will help you find the thought, create the thought based on what you've shared on how you want to feel with them, right? And all you have to do is listen to them and think after them. That's what we call a hypnosuggestion or a hypnoaffirmation, right? So it really is training wheels. Just like when you ride a bike with training wheels, you don't have to have the balance. It's teaching you the balance. When you work with a hypnotherapist, you don't have to have the thoughts. They're teaching you the thoughts. So back when I was depressed, I wouldn't have been able to come up with the positive thoughts on my own. I wasn't in a place where I could do that. I needed to listen and repeat those thoughts after the hypnotherapist. But the cool thing is that once you do that enough, you create new patterns in your subconscious mind. You gain the same results as if you came up with the thought yourself. All of a sudden, those are your thoughts. They're your automatic thoughts. It's a new automatic pattern in your brain where those thoughts just come up automatically for you. And when you think those thoughts more, when you think those new, happy, positive thoughts more than the old depressing thoughts, you are no longer a depressed person. And it's crazy. It's truly that simple. You just have to commit to it. Okay, so I am very hard at work right now. I'm creating this product. It's literally the best thing I've created so far in my career as a hypnotherapist. It is called the Manifested Me Vault. It's a full subscription library of manifestation-specific hypnotherapy audios that you can stream on demand, no matter where you are, right from your phone. So I'm going to launch the vault. It's going to have 20 audios to begin with, and then I'll add new audios quite frequently. I'm aiming for like weekly or so. So there's always going to be something new for you to try and explore. And there are so many audios in the vault already that are going to help you explore the contrast of your emotions, like we talked about here today. Okay? They're going to help you move from the dark emotions to the light ones in any area of your life that you could really imagine. There's one audio that's called Letting Go of Negative Attachments. And this audio literally walks you through the process of learning those lessons from negativity and then transmuting those negative emotions, picking different colors, moving on, letting go, right? No longer running away from it, but truly processing it, learning from it, letting it go. I mean, that's how we process an emotion in a healthy way. There's an audio that's called Ridding Yourself of Lack Mentality and Manifesting Abundance. Okay, there's some contrast for you. Lack versus abundance. Let's move you from one color to another, from red to green, right? Now, there's another beautiful session in there that's going to help you tap into your ability for heart-centered living. Heart-centered living from a place of love. Ooh, love, guys. That is such a high vibe emotion. Potentially is the highest vibration you could experience. So let's learn to live from that place. Start your day off living from love. And I would say this audio is fantastic because it incorporates a lot of techniques that are based on human-given psychology. And that's the theory that you need to meet your unmet needs. And so I would say this would be a particularly great audio for anyone dealing with depression or anxiety right now. There's an audio on, I'm trying to think of the other ones, happiness, on tapping into your inherent confidence, on gratitude, on manifesting wealth, prosperity, and abundance, which actually all of those things are just rooted in simply overhauling limiting beliefs. So if you name it, there's an audio for it in this library. I mean, so many of these audios help you play around with the contrast of emotions here, because I know it can be complex, and I know it's helpful to have somebody hold your hand through that process. And since hypnotherapy is such a great tool to help you put some distance and perspective between you and that thought you're thinking, it's a great tool to use to reframe limiting beliefs. Okay, let me see, what do I have on my to-do list? I have 3 more audios to write for the library before I'll have the initial launch set all written. And then, of course, I have to record all of them and produce all of them, which will be like over 10 hours of recording. So I better fill up my water bottle right now. But after that, the Manifest in Me Vault will be launching so very soon. I don't want to promise any specific dates just yet. I know a lot of you guys have been asking me about it and DMing me about it, but I would, if I had to guess, I'd say early April, okay? About a month away. So if you want to learn firsthand how to play with the contrast of emotions, to learn how to transmute emotions, to be the conductor of the orchestra of your own emotional life, and to no longer be stuck in patterns of negative emotions that no longer serve you, the Manifest in Me Vault is the place to be. So go to BrittanyHoops.com/audio, and not only will you be signed up to my email list so that you'll get first access to the vault, but I'm going to try to see if I can figure out how to give a free sort of like 3 or 5 or 7 day trial to it once it launches. I think that should be an option. I'm still playing around with it. Not only will you find out the moment that this vault opens, but I'll even send you a free full-length audio that's going to be in the vault, but you'll get to keep this one. You can have it to keep. So it's my ultimate manifestation hypnotherapy audio. It's this audio. I mean, it's absolutely great. It's going to be included in the vault too, but it can be used for any manifestation that you want to bring into this world. I personally use it every day. It's kind of a non-negotiable hypnotherapy audio for me. So I want you to check out the links in the show notes, or just directly visit BrittanyHoops.com/audio, and you'll be able to download it for free. So I just want you guys to enjoy the emotional journey, travelers, even in all its contrast, even in all its complexity. And I'll be sure to catch you in the next episode.
I don't know.